On Easter Sunday, at exactly 6:40 p.m., my aunt stood up from the dinner table, poured herself a fifth glass of Chardonnay, and told me I didn't share a single drop of blood with the family I'd spent 27 years trying to belong to. There were 11 people in that room when she said it, and not one of them could look me in the eye after. Before I take you back to that night, do me a favor. If you've ever felt like you didn't quite fit in your own family, like something was off but you couldn't prove it, hit like, subscribe, and tell me where you're watching from. I read every single comment. Because what I found out didn't just explain my childhood, it rewrote it. My name is Alyssa Grant. I'm 27 years old, and for 27 years, I thought I was the problem. I grew up in a small town called Ridgefield, Indiana, population just under 9,500. The kind of place where your last name matters more than your first, and people remember what your mother wore to church 10 years ago. Our house sat on Willow Creek Road. 2-story, beige siding, green shutters, a front porch my father repainted every spring like clockwork. My older sister, Lauren Grant, was the pride of that house. Straight-A student, varsity soccer captain, engaged by 25, now working as a real estate agent, making more money in commissions than I made in a year. Me, I worked front desk at a dental office. 40 hours a week, $18.75 an hour, health insurance barely decent, and a manager who called me dependable like it was a consolation prize. I drove a 2009 Toyota Corolla with a dented trunk that wouldn't fully close in winter. Lauren drove a brand new Lexus NX. My dad helped her with the down payment, $15,000. He mentioned that number like it was a family achievement. Easter dinner started at 5:30. I arrived at 5:12, carrying a tray of deviled eggs I'd made from scratch. My mom opened the door wearing a pale yellow cardigan and that same tight smile she'd worn my entire life. "Alyssa, you're early. You always say be on time." She hugged me lightly, quick, like checking off a task. Inside, the house smelled like ham glaze and lemon cleaner. The living room walls were lined with photos. I stopped, like I always did, and counted. 12 framed photos. Lauren at her high school graduation. Lauren holding a soccer trophy. Lauren and my dad fishing at Lake Monroe. Lauren and my mom at a bridal expo. Lauren and her fiancé Caleb standing in front of their new house. 12 photos, 0 of me. I stopped counting when I was 16, but for some reason, that night, I counted again. 12-0. Lauren was already sitting on the couch, scrolling through her phone, legs tucked under her like she owned the space. She looked up. "Hey, Liz, traffic okay?" "Yeah, not bad." She smiled, went back to her screen. Conversation over. In the kitchen, I set my tray down. My mom glanced at it. "Oh, Lauren already brought deviled eggs." Of course she did. "We probably don't need 2. Right. I moved mine to the side, next to the sink, where the dishes nobody wanted usually ended up. Dinner seating hadn't changed in 27 years. Lauren sat next to my dad at the head of the table, my mom beside him. Guests filled in the main chairs. I sat at the very end, not even part of the table set. A folding chair, metal, cold. Same one I'd sat in since I was 8. While everyone gathered in the living room before dinner, I slipped down the hallway. Habit. My old bedroom door was open. It wasn't a bedroom anymore. Boxes stacked to the ceiling, holiday decorations, old coats, a treadmill no one used. A bare mattress leaned against the wall like an afterthought. No curtains, just a window facing the neighbor's fence. Lauren had moved into the master bedroom when she turned 14. My parents said she needed the space, said she was growing up. I stayed here. I shared my room with storage until I moved out at 19. At dinner, the same patterns played out. Lauren got second helpings of ham, the good cuts. I got whatever was left on the platter by the time it reached me. My dad asked Lauren about her latest listing. 3-bedroom, 2-bath, closing at $312,000, she said. "Smart investment," he nodded. "That's how you build wealth." I waited for a pause. I got a raise last month, I said. $2.50 more an hour. He nodded once. That's good. That was it. One word. Good. No questions, no interest, no eye contact. I ate quietly. I was good at that, at disappearing without leaving the room. Then my Aunt Denise arrived. She was my dad's younger sister, 58 years old, divorced twice, the kind of woman who said too much when she drank, and not enough when she was sober. She walked in with a bottle of Chardonnay under her arm. Not the one my mom had set out. Her own. She saw me immediately. There you are. She crossed the room and hugged me tight. Too tight. She smelled like perfume and wine already. She pulled back, looked at my face like she was trying to memorize it. You look just like... She stopped. Like who? I asked. She shook her head. Nothing. You look good, sweetheart. My dad watched that exchange. I noticed. He always watched her like she was unpredictable. Like she knew something she wasn't supposed to say. Dinner started at 5:47. By 6:30, Denise was on her fourth glass. My mom leaned toward her. Maybe slow down tonight. Denise smiled. Maybe you should have slowed down 27 years ago, Karen. My mom froze, just for a second. Then she kept eating. No one else caught it, but I did. Something shifted. You ever have that feeling? Like you're standing in a room you've been in your whole life, but suddenly it feels unfamiliar? Like you've missed something obvious for years. That was the moment. Dessert came out at 6:38. Carrot cake, Lauren's favorite. Denise stood up at 6:40. Her chair scraped loud enough to cut through every conversation in the room. 11 people turned. My dad stood immediately. Sit down, Denise. She didn't. She looked straight at me, not at anyone else. Just me. Her eyes were glassy, but clear enough to be dangerous. I've watched this long enough. My dad's voice dropped. Don't. She ignored him. She pointed at me. You don't belong to this family. Silence. Not the quiet kind. The heavy kind. The kind that presses against your chest. My mom's fork slipped from her hand. Lauren stopped mid-bite. Caleb froze with his glass halfway to his mouth. My dad stepped forward. She's drunk. She doesn't know what she's saying. Denise shook her head. I know exactly what I'm saying. You were never a Grant. The room cracked open. I looked at my dad. His face had gone pale. Not angry, not confused. Pale. Like something had just been exposed. My mom didn't say a word. She just sat there, hands flat on the table, eyes closed, like she'd been waiting for this moment her whole life. And that's when I knew. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't wine talking. This was truth. I stood up slowly. No yelling, no crying. I folded my napkin, set it beside my plate, and walked out. Behind me, I heard voices rising, my dad shouting, my aunt crying, chairs scraping. But I didn't turn around. I got in my car, started the engine, and drove. At 7:12 p.m., my phone started ringing. Mom, Dad, Lauren. 5 calls in under 2 minutes. I let it ring. Because for the first time in 27 years, I wasn't trying to stay. I parked behind an empty grocery store 2 miles away. Hands on the steering wheel. Heart steady. Too steady. That's the part that scared me. Not the words, not the shock, the calm. Because deep down, I think I'd always known something was wrong. I just didn't know what. Until now. And as I sat there, staring at my reflection in the dark windshield, one question kept repeating in my head. If I wasn't a Grant, then who the hell was I? And why had everyone else known before me? At 7:18 p.m., my phone buzzed for the 9th time. 6 missed calls from my mom, 2 from my dad, 1 from Lauren, and then a text. Come back. We need to talk. Mom. I stared at the screen for a full minute before locking it and setting the phone face down on the passenger seat. For 27 years, they had chances to talk. They chose silence every single time. Now they wanted urgency. I leaned back in my seat, staring through the windshield at the empty parking lot. A flickering streetlight buzzed above me, casting that dull orange glow that makes everything look slightly unreal. My hands weren't shaking. That still bothered me. Shouldn't I be panicking? Shouldn't I be crying? Instead, there was this quiet, controlled feeling sitting in my chest, like a puzzle piece had finally clicked into place, and I didn't like what the picture was becoming. The phone rang again. Dad. I let it ring twice, 3 times. Then I answered. His voice came through sharp, controlled, already defensive. Where are you? Not hello, not are you okay, just control. I'm out. That's not an answer. It's the only one you're getting right now. A pause. I could hear my mom in the background crying. Not loud, the restrained kind, the kind that leaks through walls. Your aunt is drunk, he said. She's been unstable for years. You know that. Is she? Yes. Then why didn't you correct her? Silence. I waited. 5 seconds. 10. Because if it was a lie, he would have shut it down immediately. Instead, he exhaled slowly. You're making this bigger than it is. Bigger than what? Another pause. Longer this time. You need to come home, Alyssa. We'll talk about it as a family. We've been a family for 27 years, I said. You had 27 years to talk. His voice hardened. Don't take that tone with me. Which tone? The one where I ask a basic question? You're being dramatic. That word, dramatic. It landed exactly where it always had, like a label I'd been carrying my whole life without realizing it. I smiled slightly. Am I? Yes. Then tell me the truth, right now, over the phone. Another silence. But this one felt different. Heavy. Like something was pressing against the other side of it. I can't do that, he said finally. Not like this. I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. That's what I thought. Alyssa. I ended the call. No goodbye, no hesitation. I picked up my phone again and turned it off completely. Not silent, off. Because for the first time in my life, I didn't want access. I sat there for another 20 minutes, maybe 30. Time felt strange, slower, like everything had stretched out around me. Then I started the car and drove home. My apartment was small, 1 bedroom, 3rd floor. Rent was $1,150 a month, which was already pushing it. But everything in it was mine. Every plate, every chair, every bill paid with my own money. No one could take that away from me. I locked the door behind me and leaned against it. The silence inside felt different than the silence in my parents' house. This one didn't judge me. I walked into the kitchen, poured a glass of water, and just stood there. Then, without thinking too much about it, I grabbed my laptop, opened it, and typed 6 words into the search bar. DNA test kit, fast results, USA. The page loaded instantly. Top result, $129. Results in 5 to 7 weeks. I stared at the screen. My dad's voice echoed in my head. If you dig into this, you'll destroy everything. I leaned back in the chair. Everything like what? The photos I wasn't in? The birthdays no one remembered? The folding chair at every holiday? I clicked Add to Cart. Didn't hesitate. Didn't overthink. Just clicked. Because here's the thing. There's a moment in your life when you realize peace was never real. It was just silence. And silence isn't something you protect anymore. It's something you break. The confirmation email came through 12 seconds later. Estimated delivery, 4 business days. I closed the laptop, walked to the bathroom, turned on the light, and looked at myself. Really looked. Blue eyes. I'd always been told they came from my mom's side, except my mom's eyes were green. My dad's were brown. Lauren's were brown. I leaned closer to the mirror, studied the shape of my face, the jawline, the nose, the way my ears angled slightly forward. Things I used to hate in photos. Things I thought made me look off, different. Maybe I wasn't wrong. Maybe I just didn't know why. I turned off the light, went to bed, and didn't sleep. The next morning, my phone stayed off. I didn't turn it back on until 9:45 a.m. When I did, it exploded. 14 missed calls, 22 texts, most from my mom. Please answer. We need to talk. I'm worried about you. Don't do anything drastic. Your dad didn't mean what he said. Call me, call me, call me. Then one from Lauren. Can you just come over and act normal for 5 minutes? I stared at that one longer than the others. Act normal. Like last night didn't happen. Like 27 years didn't just get cracked open in front of 11 witnesses. I typed a reply, deleted it, typed again, deleted that too. Then I locked the phone and set it down, because I didn't want normal anymore. Normal had been the problem. I went to work at 11 o'clock. Front desk at Ridgefield Dental. Phones ringing, patients checking in, insurance forms, smiling faces. I was good at this job, because it required one thing: composure. Mrs. Jensen came in at 11:15 with her golden retriever, Max. He had a dental cleaning scheduled. She smiled at me. You always look so calm, Alyssa. I smiled back. Practice. She laughed, not knowing how true that was. I spent 8 hours moving through routine, answering calls, scheduling appointments, explaining billing codes. And underneath all of it, that same quiet question kept running. If I wasn't a Grant, then who was I? At 6:02 p.m., I got home. The hallway smelled like someone's burnt dinner. I didn't even take my shoes off. I walked straight to the kitchen, opened my laptop, and started digging. Not emotionally, not impulsively, carefully, like I was building a case. First step, photos. I pulled out the only album I had from childhood, 3 albums total, maybe 200 pictures across 15 years. I flipped through them slowly, page by page, looking at something I'd never looked for before. Patterns. Lauren in the center of every photo. Me. Edges, background, cut off, or not there at all. But then, one photo stopped me. A summer barbecue. I couldn't have been older than 5. My mom stood near the grill, smiling, and next to her, a man I didn't recognize. Tall, dark hair, hand resting casually on her shoulder. Too casual, too familiar. I turned the photo over. There was handwriting. My mom's. Summer 2001. RG plus MT. I froze. RGMT. Those initials didn't match my dad. Didn't match anyone in our family. I stared at the letters. My chest tightened slightly. Because for the first time, there was something real. Not just a feeling. Not just a suspicion. A detail. A name. Or at least part of one. I grabbed my phone, opened the browser, and typed 2 letters. RG. Ridgefield, Indiana. Nothing useful came up. Too vague. I stared at the screen, then back at the photo, then back at the screen. And that quiet feeling in my chest shifted slightly. Not calm anymore. Focused. Because now, this wasn't just a question. It was a trail. And I had just found the first piece of it. I placed the photo flat on the table, sat down slowly, and whispered something I didn't even realize I was thinking. Who are you? 3 days later, at exactly 2:16 p.m., a small white box arrived at my apartment door. No logo, no branding, just a shipping label and my name printed in clean black ink. Inside that box was a cotton swab, a tube, and a question that had been waiting 27 years for an answer. I didn't open it right away. I set it on the kitchen counter and stared at it like it might say something first, like it might warn me or stop me. It didn't. Before I go further, I want to ask you something. If you were in my place right now, would you open that box immediately? Or would you wait, just a little longer, to keep your life from changing? Tell me in the comments, because I stood there for almost an hour, doing nothing, just looking at it. My phone buzzed again. Mom. I declined it. She called again. Declined. Then a text came through. Please don't do anything you'll regret. I stared at that message longer than I should have. Not because it scared me, but because of what it implied. She knew. Or at least, she knew enough to be afraid. I typed a reply, then deleted it. Because there was nothing left to say. Not until I had proof. Wednesday morning, 9:03 a.m. I opened the box. The instructions were simple. Swab your cheek for 30 seconds, seal the sample, mail it. The whole process took less than 2 minutes. 2 minutes to potentially dismantle an entire life. My hands didn't shake this time. They were steady. Too steady. Like I'd already made peace with whatever was coming. I sealed the tube, placed it in the prepaid envelope, grabbed my keys, and drove. The post office on Maple Street was quiet. One person in line, an older man mailing a package. I stood behind him, holding the envelope. It felt heavier than it should have. When it was my turn, the clerk smiled. DNA test? I blinked. Yeah. She nodded. We get a lot of those lately. I forced a small smile. Yeah, seems like it. She scanned it, dropped it into the outgoing bin, and just like that, it was gone. No ceremony, no hesitation, no turning back. I walked out to my car and sat there for a moment, because something had just shifted. Not externally, internally. There was no more wondering if I would do it. I had done it. Now all that was left was waiting. 6 to 8 weeks. That's what the website said. 42 to 56 days. That's how long it takes to find out if your entire identity was built on a lie. I drove home in silence, past Willow Creek Road without meaning to. Habit. My hands slowed on the wheel as the familiar street came into view. I could see the house from the corner. Same beige siding, same green shutters, same American flag on the porch. Everything looked exactly the same. Except now, it didn't. I didn't stop. I didn't turn in. I just drove past. Because for the first time, that house didn't feel like mine. That afternoon, I turned my phone off again. Not because I was angry, because I needed space. The kind of space you don't get when people are trying to control the narrative before you even know the truth. The next few days blurred together. Work, sleep, repeat. At the clinic, nothing had changed. Phones rang, patients smiled, dogs barked. Life moved forward like nothing had happened. And I played my role perfectly. Calm, efficient, invisible. But inside, everything was shifting. Every memory started to feel different, like it had a second layer, a hidden version I hadn't seen before. Thursday night, I pulled out the photo again. The barbecue, my mom, the unknown man. RGMT. I stared at his face longer this time, trying to memorize it, trying to find something familiar. And that's when it hit me. The jaw. It wasn't my dad's. It wasn't Lauren's. But it looked like mine. My stomach tightened slightly. I flipped the photo over again. RGMT. 2 sets of initials. Not random. Intentional. I grabbed my laptop, opened a blank search, and typed slowly. RG. Ridgefield, Indiana, 2001. Nothing useful. Too broad. I leaned back, thinking. Then I tried something else. Local records, old directories, property listings, church bulletins. Anything tied to names and timeframes. It took 2 hours. 2 hours of digging through outdated websites and archived pages. But then, something appeared. A scanned PDF. Ridgefield Community Events, Summer 2001. I clicked it, scrolled slowly, and there it was. July 14th, Grant Family BBQ, hosted by Robert Grant and guest contractor Ryan Grayson. My breath caught. Ryan Grayson. R.G. I stared at the name, read it again, then again. Guest contractor, not family, but present. Close enough to be invited. Close enough to be photographed. Close enough to have his hand on my mother's shoulder. I leaned back in my chair, heart steady, mind sharp, because now this wasn't just a suspicion anymore. This was a direction, a name, a real one. Ryan Grayson. I typed it into the search bar. Ryan Grayson, Indiana. Too many results. I refined it. Ryan Grayson, Ridgefield, Indiana. Fewer results. Then I added one more detail. Contractor. And that's when I found it. A business listing. Grayson Custom Builds, Indianapolis, Indiana. Owner, Ryan T. Grayson. Age, 54. I clicked the profile. A photo loaded. Man standing in a workshop, wood dust on his shirt, tools behind him. And his face? I froze. Blue eyes. Same shade as mine. Same sharp line of the nose. Same slight angle of the ears. I stood up without realizing it, walked to the bathroom, turned on the light, looked at myself, then back at the screen, then back at myself, again and again. There are moments in your life when something clicks so clearly you can't unsee it. This was one of them. I whispered it out loud. No, not a question, a realization. Because for the first time, I wasn't asking if I looked like someone. I knew I did. And the man on that screen was 70 miles away, alive, living a life that didn't include me. Did he know? Did he ever wonder? Did he leave? Or was he pushed out? I stared at his photo one more time, then closed the laptop slowly, because suddenly, the DNA test didn't feel like the biggest step anymore. Finding him did. And as I stood there in the quiet of my apartment, one thought settled in my chest. Cold, clear, unavoidable. If my parents had spent 27 years hiding this, what else had they buried to keep it that way? 4 days after I found his name, at exactly 8:22 a.m., my father showed up unannounced at my apartment door. Not a text, not a call. Just 3 sharp knocks that sounded more like a warning than a request. I hadn't even finished my coffee. I opened the door. He didn't wait. He stepped past me like he still had the right. Same work jacket, same boots, same smell of sawdust and motor oil. But something about him felt different. Tighter. Like he was holding something in place that was trying to break loose. We need to talk. You've had 27 years. He ignored that, walked straight to my kitchen table, sat down, looked around like he was inspecting the place. You keep it clean. I didn't answer, because that wasn't why he was here. I leaned against the counter, arms crossed. Say what you came to say. He nodded once, like he'd rehearsed this. Your aunt made a mistake. No, she made a decision. His jaw tightened. She was drunk. Then why are you here? That landed. He shifted slightly in the chair. Because you're about to make one. I said nothing. Let him continue. If you keep digging into this, he said slowly, you're going to tear this family apart. I let out a quiet breath. You mean the version of it that only worked because I didn't know the truth? His eyes snapped to mine. This isn't as simple as you think. Then make it simple. Tell me, right now, who is Ryan Grayson? There it was, the name. The moment it left my mouth, something changed in his face. Not confusion, not denial. Recognition. Immediate, unavoidable. And then, anger. Where did you hear that name? I stepped closer to the table. I asked you a question. He stood up, chair scraping hard against the floor. You've been digging where you shouldn't. Where I shouldn't? I almost laughed. My entire life is built on something you won't even explain. And I'm the one crossing a line? His voice dropped, lower, colder. That man has nothing to do with you. I tilted my head slightly. That's not what your face just said. Silence. And in that silence, I saw it. Not just guilt, not just anger. Fear. Real fear. The kind you don't fake. The kind that only shows up when the truth is too close. I stepped even closer. Do I look like you? He didn't answer. Do I? His jaw flexed. You look like your mother. My mother has green eyes. You have brown. Lauren has brown. I paused. Let it sit. I have blue. The room went quiet. The refrigerator hummed behind us. A car passed outside. Normal life continued. But inside that kitchen, everything had stopped. He looked at me. Really looked this time. Not past me, not through me, at me. And for a second, I saw something I had never seen before. Not distance, not indifference, recognition. Like he was finally seeing what had been in front of him for 27 years, and couldn't ignore it anymore. I swallowed once, carefully. Say it. He shook his head. No, say it. His voice hardened again. You don't understand what you're doing. Then help me understand. Another pause. Longer. He turned away slightly, ran a hand over his face. Then said it, slow, measured, controlled. I had my suspicions. There it was. Not a denial, not confusion. Confirmation. My chest tightened. Since when? He didn't answer immediately. I waited, because I knew now silence meant something. Since you were born. The words didn't hit like I expected. They didn't explode. They settled, heavy, cold, like something falling into place. You knew, for 27 years. He nodded once, barely. And you said nothing. I made a choice. You made a decision about my entire life. His voice sharpened. I raised you. I provided for you. I didn't leave. There it was, the justification, the same one he'd been holding on to, like it erased everything else. I stepped back slightly, gave the moment space. You didn't leave, I said. You stayed, and punished me for it. His head snapped up. That's not true, isn't it? My voice stayed calm, controlled, because anger wasn't useful here. Facts were. The folding chair, the birthdays you forgot, the fact that there are 12 pictures of Lauren on your wall, and not one of me. His breathing changed, slightly heavier. You think that was an accident? He didn't answer, because he couldn't, because we both knew. I stepped closer again, lowered my voice. You didn't treat me like a daughter. You treated me like evidence. That one landed. Hard. He looked away, and for the first time, he didn't fight back immediately. I let the silence stretch, because sometimes silence says more than anything else. Then he spoke again, quieter this time. You don't know what it was like. Then tell me. He shook his head. Your mother made a mistake, and I paid for it. No, I said. I paid for it. We stood there. Two people, same house, same history, completely different truths. Then he said something that shifted everything again. If you contact him, you're done. I blinked once. Slow. Done? Don't come back to this house. Don't come to family events. Don't expect anything from me. There it was. Not just fear, control, an ultimatum. After 27 years of silence, that was his move. I nodded slowly, took it in, then answered, I wasn't coming back anyway. That stopped him, just for a second. You think this is a game? No, I think this is the first honest moment we've ever had. His jaw tightened again. You're going to regret this. Maybe, but at least it'll be my choice. not yours. We stood there. The distance between us felt different now. Clear, defined, like a line had finally been drawn. He grabbed his keys, walked to the door, stopped, but didn't turn around. Some truths don't fix anything, Alyssa. They just make everything worse. I leaned against the counter again, watched him. Some lies don't protect anything. They just delay the damage. He didn't respond. He opened the door, stepped out, and closed it behind him. I stood there for a long time after he left. The apartment felt quieter than usual, like something had been removed. Not added, removed. The illusion. I walked to the table, sat down, opened my laptop, pulled up the same page. Ryan T. Grayson, contractor, Indianapolis, 54 years old, blue eyes. I stared at his face again, longer this time. Because now, this wasn't just a possibility. It was real. My dad knew. My mom knew. They had always known, and they chose silence every single day for 27 years. I reached for my phone, opened the browser, scrolled down. There it was. Business contact, email address, phone number. Simple, direct, available. I hovered my thumb over the screen. Did he know? Did he ever suspect? Or had he been kept in the dark, just like me? I thought about my dad's face, the fear, the ultimatum. If you contact him, you're done. I let out a slow breath, because here's the truth. There's a moment in every story like this where you realize you can't go back. Not to the version of life you had, not to the version of yourself that didn't know. This was that moment. I picked up my phone, opened a new message, and started typing. My name is Alyssa Grant. I'm 27 years old. I grew up in Ridgefield, Indiana, and I believe you might be my biological father. I stopped, read it once, twice, then looked back at his photo. Blue eyes, same as mine. I didn't overthink it. I didn't edit it. I just pressed send. And just like that, everything changed. I set the phone down on the table, screen facing up, waiting. Because somewhere, 70 miles away, a man was about to read a message that would either confirm everything or destroy what little certainty I had left. And I had no idea which one I was hoping for. 38 hours passed before he replied. 38 hours of checking my phone every 10 minutes, then pretending I wasn't. 38 hours of sleeping lightly, waking up at 3:12 a.m., 4:47 a.m., 6:05 a.m., like my body knew something was coming before my mind did. The message came in at 11:26 p.m. on a Thursday. I was sitting on my couch, half watching a show I couldn't follow, when the notification lit up my screen. Unknown sender. My heart didn't race. It dropped. Heavy. Controlled. I opened it. Alyssa, I read your message twice before replying. I don't know how to say this the right way, so I'm just going to say it straight. I didn't know you existed. I stared at the screen. Didn't blink. Didn't breathe. I kept reading. If what you're saying is true, then there are things I should have been told a long time ago. Your mother never said anything to me. Not once. I left Ridgefield in late 2001 because she told me it was over. That was it. My hand tightened slightly around the phone. He kept writing. I don't want to assume anything, but I'm willing to talk. If you're open to it, we can meet somewhere public. Or just call first, whatever you're comfortable with. He left a phone number. No pressure, no denial, no anger, just openness. I read the message again, then a third time, because I was looking for something. A crack, a lie, a hesitation. There wasn't one. I stood up slowly, walked to the bathroom, turned on the light, and looked at myself. Really looked. Blue eyes staring back. Steady. Unfamiliar in a way they hadn't been before. I whispered it, barely audible. He didn't know. And something inside me shifted. Not relief, not yet, but something close. Because if he didn't know, then that meant this wasn't just a secret. It was a decision, a choice made by someone else. To keep him out, to keep me in, to control both sides of the truth. I walked back into the living room, sat down, phone still in my hand. There's a moment when your life splits into two versions, before you know something and after. This was that line. I pressed call. It rang once, twice, then, "Alyssa?" His voice, warm, careful, like he was holding something fragile. "Yeah, hi." Silence. 10 seconds, maybe more. I could hear him breathing. He could hear me. Two strangers connected by something neither of us chose. He exhaled softly. "I don't even know where to start." "You can start with what you remember." He paused, then began. "Your mom and we knew each other for about 5 months, maybe 6. I was doing contract work in Ridgefield, small jobs, repairs, renovations. I met her through your dad." I closed my eyes. Of course, they knew each other. Not strangers, not random. Connected. "We weren't supposed to get close," he continued. "But we did. It wasn't planned. It just happened." His voice didn't sound defensive. It sounded honest. Then one day, she told me it was over. No explanation, no argument, just done. She said your dad was coming back from a job out of town and that I needed to stay away. Did you question it? Of course I did, but she was firm, said it was the right thing to do, said I needed to respect her marriage. He paused. "So I left. Just like that?" "Yeah." He let out a quiet breath. I was 27. Thought I was doing the honorable thing, walking away, not causing problems. I leaned back into the couch. You ever realize someone else's version of doing the right thing can completely destroy someone else's life? Because that's what this felt like. I swallowed once. "Did you ever try to contact her again?" "Once, in 2004. I called a mutual friend, asked how she was doing. And? They said she was fine, married, had 2 daughters. 2 daughters. He repeated it quietly. I didn't do the math. I didn't think. His voice cracked slightly. I didn't think one of them could be mine. Silence filled the space between us again, thicker this time. Because now, we both understood what had been taken. 27 years. I broke it. I took a DNA test. He didn't hesitate. Okay. No denial, no pushback, just acceptance. I haven't gotten the results yet, I said, but I trailed off, because I didn't need to finish that sentence. He already knew. I know. Another pause. Then he asked the question that mattered. Do your parents know you reached out to me? I thought about my dad standing in my kitchen, the ultimatum, the threat. Yeah, and? I stared at the ceiling. They told me not to. He let out a quiet, almost humorless breath. That sounds about right. You're not surprised? No. Why? Because if they knew, he paused, then they had a reason to keep me out of it. And that reason probably wasn't good. I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. Yeah. Another silence, but this one felt different, less tense, more grounded. Then he said something that stayed with me. You deserve to know. Simple, direct, no excuses, no conditions, just truth. I closed my eyes for a second, because I didn't realize how much I needed to hear that, until someone actually said it. Can I ask you something? He added. Yeah. What made you look into this now? I let out a quiet breath. Easter dinner, my aunt said something she wasn't supposed to. He didn't ask for details, didn't push, just said, I'm glad she did. That surprised me. You are? Yeah, because otherwise, you'd still be wondering. And I felt that, deep, because he was right. Wondering is worse than knowing, even when the truth hurts. We talked for another 20 minutes. Nothing dramatic, no big emotional moment, just information. Careful, measured. Two people trying to understand a connection that should have existed years ago. Before we hung up, he said, "If you want to meet, I'm here. No pressure. We can take it slow." I nodded, even though, again, he couldn't see me. Okay. We ended the call. I set the phone down on the couch beside me and just sat there, because everything had shifted again. Not exploded, shifted, quietly, permanently. My biological father was real, alive, and 70 miles away, and he hadn't known. Not for a single day of my life. I leaned forward, hands clasped, eyes unfocused, because now there was a new question, and this one felt heavier than the last. If he didn't know, then what exactly had my parents done to keep it that way? I picked up my phone again, opened our message thread, stared at his name, then looked around my apartment, the walls, the silence, the life I built on my own. And for the first time, a different thought settled in. Not who am I, but something sharper, something clearer. Who kept me from knowing who I was? And why? Because whatever the answer was, I had a feeling it wasn't going to stay buried much longer. 9 days after that call, at exactly 7:08 p.m., my mother showed up at my apartment with a manila folder clutched to her chest, like it was the only thing keeping her upright. She hadn't texted, hadn't called, just knocked. Soft this time, not like my dad. I opened the door, and for a second I didn't recognize her. She looked smaller, not physically, but diminished, like something inside her had finally collapsed under its own weight. "Alyssa." Her voice cracked on my name. I stepped aside. She walked in slowly, carefully, like she didn't know if she was allowed. That was new. She used to move through my space like it was an extension of hers. Now she stood in the middle of my living room, holding that folder like evidence. "Can we sit?" "We're already sitting in something," I said. She flinched slightly, then nodded. We sat at the kitchen table, same place my dad had sat days earlier. Only this time, the energy was different. He came in with control. She came in with something else. Fear. Regret. Maybe both. She placed the folder on the table, but didn't open it yet. Her fingers stayed on top of it, pressing down. Like if she let go, everything inside would spill out too fast. I didn't speak, because I knew this moment mattered, and if I rushed it, she'd retreat. Finally, she exhaled. "You talked to him." Not a question, a statement. "Yes." Her eyes closed briefly, like she expected that. "Of course you did." I leaned back in my chair. "You had 27 years to tell me. You don't get to be surprised I found someone else who would." That landed hard. She nodded slowly. "You're right. That was new too. No deflection, no excuse, just agreement." I waited. She opened the folder. Inside were papers, old, worn at the edges. She pulled out the first one, handwritten, yellowed slightly with time, and slid it across the table to me. I didn't touch it right away. "What is this?" Her voice dropped. "Something your father made me sign." My eyes flicked up to hers. "Made you?" She swallowed. "Yes." I looked back at the paper, then picked it up. The handwriting wasn't hers. It was his. Tight, controlled, deliberate. The words were simple, too simple. "I, Karen Mitchell, agree to the following terms. I will have no further contact with Ryan T. Grayson. I will not disclose any information regarding the child to him now or in the future. I will raise the child as Robert Grant's and will not contest his authority as legal father. Failure to comply will result in dissolution of marriage and full custody action." I stopped reading. My fingers tightened slightly around the page. The date, April 2002, a month after I was born. I looked up. "He made you sign this?" She nodded, tears sitting in her eyes but not falling. "He gave me a choice, Stay or lose everything. Everything like what? Her voice cracked. You. Silence, the kind that doesn't move. Because now, this wasn't just emotional. This was documented, planned, enforced. I looked back at the paper, read it again, slower. Legal father, authority, custody. This wasn't a reaction. This was control. You could have fought it. The words came out sharper than I expected. She flinched again. I know, but I didn't. Why? Because I was scared. I laughed once, short, cold. You were scared? She nodded. I was 26. I had a newborn, no job, no money of my own. Your father handled everything, the house, the accounts, the insurance. If he left, she stopped. If he left, I had nothing. I leaned forward. You had me. Her eyes filled. I know, but I convinced myself that staying was protecting you. I shook my head slowly. No, you protected yourself. That silence again, but this time, it cut deeper. Because it was true, and we both knew it. She didn't argue, didn't defend. She just sat there and let it land. Then she reached into the folder again, pulled out another document, this one typed, official, stamped, birth certificate. I already knew what it would say, but I looked anyway. Name, Alyssa Grant. Father, Robert Grant. Mother, Karen Mitchell. Clean, simple, a lie printed like fact. He signed it, she said quietly, before I even left the hospital. My jaw tightened. Of course he did. He didn't just suspect, he acted. Immediately. Legally. Permanently. I set the paper down, carefully. Because anger wasn't useful yet. Understanding was. Did Ryan ever try to find out? She shook her head. No. Because I made sure he didn't. You told him to leave. Yes. Her voice broke slightly. I told him it was over. That your father was coming back, that it had to end. Did you love him? That question slipped out before I could stop it. She froze, for a second, then nodded. Yes. Quiet, honest, and then, but I chose stability. I leaned back. There it is. She looked at me, confused. You didn't choose stability. You chose control. His control. Her face tightened. That's not fair. No, I gestured to the paper. You signed away the truth about your own child. You let him rewrite reality. And then you watched me grow up, thinking I was the problem. Her tears finally fell. I didn't know how to fix it. You could have told me. At 10, at 15, at 18, any time. She shook her head. He would have left. I stared at her, then let the words land slowly. He already did. Just not physically. That hit. I saw it, the realization, late but real. She looked down at her hands. For 27 years, I told myself I was keeping the family together. I shook my head. You were keeping the truth buried. She nodded slowly. And it cost you. It cost you your childhood, your sense of belonging, your identity. Her voice cracked completely now. I'm so sorry, Alyssa. I didn't answer right away, because sorry doesn't fix time. It doesn't rewrite birthdays. It doesn't put photos on walls that were always empty. But it mattered that she said it, eventually. I leaned forward, rested my arms on the table. There's something I need you to understand. She looked up. I'm not asking for your permission anymore. For what? To know who I am, to meet him, to build whatever that is. Her lips parted slightly, then closed. She nodded. You have that right. Another new thing, permission, after it didn't matter anymore. I stood up, walked to the counter, needed space, because the room felt heavier now. Not with confusion, with clarity. And clarity is harder to carry. Behind me, she spoke again. Your father won't take this well. I let out a quiet breath. He already hasn't. She hesitated, then said it. He's going to fight this. I turned slightly, not fully. Let her see just enough of my expression. Then let the words come out clean. He already lost. She blinked. Because for the first time, this wasn't something he controlled. Not the narrative, not the truth, not me. She gathered the papers slowly, put them back into the folder. But she left one on the table. The handwritten agreement. You should keep that. I looked at it, didn't pick it up. Why? Because it's proof. Proof of what? Her voice dropped. That this wasn't a mistake. It was a decision. I nodded once, because that was exactly what I needed. She stood, walked to the door, paused. I do love you. I didn't answer right away. Not because I didn't hear her, because I did. But love, without action, is just a word. After a few seconds, I said, I know. She left. The door closed softly behind her, and I stood there, alone. But not the same kind of alone as before. I walked back to the table, picked up the paper, read it again. Every line, every word, every condition. Then I folded it, carefully, placed it in my drawer, because now I had something more than suspicion, more than emotion. I had evidence. And as I sat there in the quiet, one thought settled in. Cold, precise, unavoidable. If my father had gone this far, to control the truth, then what would he do when I decided to expose it? 17 days passed without a single message from my father. No calls, no texts, no showing up unannounced. Nothing. And somehow that silence felt louder than anything he'd said before. Because it wasn't absence, it was calculation. The kind of quiet that comes before someone makes a move. During those 17 days, I didn't go back to Willow Creek Road. I didn't answer family group chats. I didn't respond to Lauren's "Are you okay?" messages that came every few days, like she was checking a box she didn't fully understand. Instead, I got very still, very focused. Because there's a point in situations like this where reacting stops being useful and planning becomes everything. I met Ryan for the first time on a Tuesday morning, 10:05 a.m., a coffee shop halfway between Ridgefield and Indianapolis. Neutral ground, public, safe. I arrived 20 minutes early, not because I was nervous, because I wanted control of the space. I chose a corner table facing the entrance, ordered black coffee, didn't drink it. At 10:12, the door opened, and he walked in. Tall, lean, work boots, dark jacket dusted with sawdust. He paused just inside the doorway, scanning, looking. Then his eyes landed on me, and he stopped. Not dramatically, just still. Like his body needed a second to catch up with what he was seeing. Blue eyes, same as mine. There it was again, that recognition. But this time, it wasn't uncomfortable. It was undeniable. He walked toward me slowly, carefully, like he didn't want to break something fragile. We stood facing each other for a second. No script, no roadmap, just reality. Hi. Hi. His voice was softer in person, warmer, more human. Up close, the similarities were impossible to ignore. The jaw, the nose, even the way he held his shoulders. "You have my mother's eyes," he said. I blinked. I didn't expect that. I always thought they were mine. He gave a small, almost sad smile. "They are." We sat. Neither of us rushed, because this wasn't something you speed through. We talked for almost 2 hours. Not about everything, just enough. He told me about his business, custom woodwork, cabinets, furniture. He showed me photos on his phone. Careful craftsmanship, detailed, precise. He told me about his life. He got married, had a son. Nathan, 23, mechanic, lives in Indianapolis. They divorced 8 years ago. No drama, just distance. I told him about my job, the dental office, the long hours, the steady routine. He listened, really listened, not waiting to talk, not redirecting, just present. That alone felt new. At one point, he leaned back slightly, looked at me. You did all this on your own? I nodded. Yeah. He exhaled slowly. You shouldn't have had to. I didn't respond, because that sentence hit deeper than I expected. We sat in silence for a moment, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It was processing. Then he asked something that shifted the tone. Does he know you're here? I didn't need to ask who he meant. Yeah. And? I looked down at my coffee, then back at him. He told me if I contacted you, I was done. Ryan nodded slowly, like he expected that too. He knew. Not a question, a statement. Yeah. He looked down at his hands. Rough, calloused. A man who built things, and probably lost something he didn't even know he had. I always wondered, he said quietly, about that time, about her, about what I walked away from. I swallowed once. You didn't walk away. You were pushed out. He looked up at me, eyes sharper now. You believe that? I held his gaze. I've seen the paperwork. That landed. He leaned back again, ran a hand over his face, exhaled. Slow. Your father, he said carefully. He made sure I stayed gone. Yes. We sat there, two people, connected by a decision neither of us made, but both of us had lived with. Then something changed, subtle, but important. He straightened slightly, looked at me differently. Not like a stranger anymore, not fully like family yet, but something in between, a shift. Can I ask you something? He said. Yeah. What do you want out of this? The question hung in the air because it mattered a lot. I didn't answer immediately because I wanted it to be true, not emotional, not reactive, clear. I want the truth, all of it. He nodded. And? I met his eyes. I want my life back. That was it. Not money, not revenge, not validation. Just ownership. He didn't smile, didn't react dramatically. He just nodded again. We deserve that. We left the coffee shop at 12:18 p.m., stood outside for a moment, neither of us rushing to leave. This is new for me, he said. Me too. He hesitated slightly. Then, I'd like to see you again. Simple, direct, no pressure. I nodded. Okay. We didn't hug. Not yet. That would have been too much. Too fast. Instead, we just stood there for a second longer, then walked to our cars. Separate directions, same reality. I drove home in silence, but not the same silence as before. This one felt different, less empty, more grounded. Because for the first time, I wasn't imagining who I might be connected to. I knew. That night, Lauren called. I answered. You've been avoiding everyone. Her voice wasn't accusatory, just strained. I've been busy. With what? The truth. Silence. Then, Mom told me everything. I leaned back on the couch. Did she? Yeah. Another pause. Is it true? Which part? The DNA test, the guy, all of it. Yes. I didn't soften it, didn't ease her into it, because this wasn't something you cushion. She exhaled slowly. I don't understand. I know. Her voice cracked slightly. Why didn't you tell me you were doing this? I sat up. Because that question mattered. Why didn't you ever ask? Silence. Long, heavy. I waited. Because I needed her to sit in that. All those years. She never questioned it. Not the food, not the room, not the photos. Nothing. I thought, she started, stopped, then tried again. I thought that's just how things were. I let out a quiet breath. That's because you were on the right side of it. That hit hard. I could hear it in the way she went quiet again. I didn't know, she whispered. I know, and I meant that. She didn't know, not really. But not knowing doesn't erase what happened. I'm sorry. Her voice was smaller now, real. I believe you, but sorry doesn't fix it. No, it doesn't. We sat in silence together, through the phone. Different houses, same history. Then she asked, "What are you going to do?" I looked out the window, streetlights flickering on, evening settling in. I'm not hiding anymore. She didn't respond right away. Then, "Dad's not going to let this go." I nodded slightly. I know. He'll try to control it, spin it, make you look like dramatic? Yeah. I almost smiled. Let him try. Because here's the thing. For 27 years, he controlled the story. Now, I had something he didn't expect. Proof. Paper. People. And most importantly, the truth. After we hung up, I sat there for a long time, phone in my hand, mind clear, because something had shifted again. Not emotionally this time, strategically. This wasn't just about understanding anymore. It was about what came next. And I knew one thing for certain. If this stayed quiet, he would win. Again. I walked to my drawer, pulled out the handwritten agreement, set it on the table, looked at it, then pulled out my laptop, opened a blank document, started organizing. Timeline, dates, names, evidence. Because if this was going to come out, it wasn't going to be messy. It was going to be precise, controlled, unavoidable. And as I sat there, typing line by line, one thought stayed steady in my mind. I wasn't going to confront him privately. No, that would let him deny it, twist it, minimize it. If this was going to happen, it was going to happen where he couldn't hide, where everyone could see it. And suddenly, I knew exactly where that place was. The one place he valued more than anything. More than truth, more than honesty, more than me. The next family gathering. And this time, I wouldn't be sitting in the folding chair. 23 days before Mother's Day, at exactly 9:14 p.m., I stopped being the daughter who reacted and became the woman who prepared. Not emotionally, not impulsively, strategically. Because if you're going to dismantle a lie that lasted 27 years, you don't do it in anger. You do it with precision. If you've ever had to plan something like this, something where the truth matters more than comfort, tell me in the comments. Would you confront privately, or would you make sure everyone sees it at once? Because I made my choice, and there was no going back. Mother's Day. That was the next big gathering. Every year, same house, same people, same performance. This year, it was going to be different. I started with the timeline, not in my head, on paper, clear, documented. Because memory can be dismissed, emotion can be twisted, but documentation doesn't argue, it proves. April 2002, handwritten agreement signed. June 2001, community event listing with Ryan's name. My birth certificate, legally altered narrative. April 2026, DNA test in progress. Contact with Ryan. Confirmed timeline mismatch. I built it like a case, because that's what it was. Not a family discussion, a case. Then I moved to evidence. Physical, tangible. I printed everything. 3 copies of each document. Not one, because one can be taken. 3 means it survives interruption. The agreement, the event record, screenshots of Ryan's business listing, a photo comparison, side by side, me and him. No labels, no explanation, just visual truth. I placed everything into a structured folder. Dividers, tabs, organized. Not emotional, clinical. Because if I stayed calm, they couldn't control the narrative. That was the key. Not volume, control. Meanwhile, I didn't stop living. I went to work, answered calls, smiled at patients, scheduled appointments. But underneath all of it, there was a quiet focus, like I was building something no one else could see yet. Ryan and I met again, twice. Same coffee shop, same corner booth. The second time, he brought someone with him. Nathan, his son, my half-brother, 23, broad shoulders, grease under his fingernails that didn't fully come out. He stood there awkwardly for a second, then extended his hand. Hey. Hey. We shook hands. Not a hug. Not yet. That would have been too easy. We sat. Ryan ordered coffee for all of us. Nathan added cream. Same small detail. Same quiet observation. We talked. Not about the past. Not right away. About normal things. Cars. Work. The kind of conversations people have when they're trying to build something without forcing it. Then Nathan looked at me. So, same dad, huh? Apparently, he nodded. Cool. I blinked. That wasn't the reaction I expected. He shrugged slightly. Always wondered what it'd be like to have a sister. That landed differently. Lighter. Unexpected. I let out a small breath. Yeah? Yeah. He smirked slightly. Guess I got one. Ryan watched both of us. Quiet. Careful. Like you didn't want to interrupt something that was building naturally. And for the first time, this didn't feel like loss. It felt like something being added. We met for 2 hours, left without overcomplicating it. No big emotional moment, no forced connection. Just a start. Back home, I added another layer to my plan. Witnesses. Because evidence alone is powerful, but evidence plus witnesses is undeniable. Great Aunt Helen, 82, sharp mind, no tolerance for nonsense. She had been at every major family event for decades. She had seen everything. I called her. She picked up on the second ring. Always did. Alyssa, her voice steady, warm. I didn't waste time. Do you remember a man named Ryan Grayson? Silence. Not confused, not searching, recognizing. Yes. That told me everything. He was around when you were little. Then he just disappeared. Why? Another pause. Because your father wanted him gone. There it was, clean, direct, no hesitation. Did you ever question it? Of course. But in this family, people don't ask questions they're not supposed to. I leaned back slightly. That line stayed with me. People don't ask questions they're not supposed to. That's how silence survives. I thanked her, hung up, and added her to the list. Not as a speaker, as confirmation. Then, I prepared the delivery. Because what you say matters, but how you say it controls everything. No yelling, no accusations, no chaos. Just facts. Layered, clear, unavoidable. I practiced it, out loud, in my apartment, standing in the same spot I imagined I would stand in that living room. Timing it, pausing where it mattered, letting silence do its job. Because silence makes people listen. I wrote down 3 sentences, short, sharp, unforgettable. I didn't lose a family. I lost a lie. You didn't protect me. You protected your secret. I was never difficult. I was just inconvenient to your truth. I read them over and over, not to memorize, to own them. Because those weren't just lines. They were reality. The week before Mother's Day, my dad finally broke his silence. One text, just one. Don't come on Sunday. No explanation, no discussion. Just control. I looked at the message, didn't respond, because he still thought he could decide that. He couldn't. Not anymore. Saturday night, I laid everything out on my kitchen table. The folder, the copies, the photos. I checked it 3 times. Not because I doubted it, because I respected what it was. This wasn't revenge. This was exposure. There's a difference. Revenge is emotional. Exposure is final. I packed everything into my bag, set it by the door. Then I stood there for a long time, looking at it. Because once this happened, there was no undoing it. No going back to quiet dinners, no pretending, no folding chair at the end of the table. Just truth, and whatever came after. I went to bed, didn't sleep much. Not from anxiety, from anticipation. Morning came slower than usual. Sunday, Mother's Day. 10:32 a.m. I stood in front of the mirror, dressed differently. Not casual, not soft. Structured, clean lines, sharp. Not for them, for me. Because when you walk into something like this, you don't look uncertain. You don't look emotional. You look ready. I picked up my bag, paused at the door, took one slow breath, then stepped outside. The drive to Willow Creek Road felt shorter than usual. Familiar turns, familiar streets, but nothing felt the same. I parked on the street, not the driveway. That mattered. Because I wasn't arriving as part of the house. I was arriving as someone separate. I stepped out, closed the door, and stood there for a second, looking at the house. Beige siding, green shutters, same as always. But now, I saw it clearly, not as home, as a place where the truth had been buried. For 27 years, I walked up to the door. Didn't hesitate, didn't knock softly, just knocked. 3 times. Firm, deliberate. The door opened. My mom stood there. Her face changed the moment she saw me. Relief, fear, then something else. Understanding. You came. I stepped inside. Yeah, I did. The house was full. 14 people this time. More than Easter. Louder. Brighter. Like nothing had changed. But it had. Every single person in that room just didn't know it yet. My dad stood near the fireplace. He saw me immediately. His face tightened. Just for a second. Then flattened. Control. Always control. Lauren stood near the kitchen. She met my eyes. Didn't smile, didn't speak. But she didn't look away either. That was new. I walked in, calm, steady, bag in my hand. Not heavy, not anymore, because I knew exactly what was inside it. Truth. And for the first time in 27 years, I wasn't carrying it alone. I moved through the room slowly. People greeted me. Careful, polite, like they could feel something but didn't know what. Yet. I sat down, not at the folding chair, at the table, in a real seat. No one stopped me. No one said anything. But I saw it. The shift. Small, subtle, but real. Lunch started. Conversation flowed. Surface level, safe. But underneath, there was tension. Like the room was waiting for something it couldn't name. My bag sat beside my chair. Close, accessible, ready. And as I sat there, listening to my dad laugh at something trivial, I realized something. He still thought this was just another day. He still thought he could control how this ended. I looked around the table. 14 people, 14 witnesses, and one truth, still unopened. But not for long. Because in less than 10 minutes, everything he spent 27 years hiding was about to be said out loud. And this time, no one was going to be able to ignore it. At exactly 12:18 p.m., my father stood up at the head of the table, tapped his glass with a fork, and smiled like nothing in his life had ever been out of place. 14 people went quiet. Same ritual, same performance, different ending. I watched him carefully, because this was the version of him everyone believed in. Controlled, respected, untouchable. "I want to thank everyone for being here today," he said. "Family means everything." I almost smiled. Family means everything. That line had carried him for decades. Megan, he nodded toward Lauren. Your mother and I are so proud of the life you're building. And to everyone else, we're grateful to have you in our lives. He lifted his glass. To family. Everyone echoed it. To family. Glasses clinked, smiles, comfort, routine. And I sat there, completely still, because I knew what was about to happen. And for the first time, I wasn't reacting. I was choosing the moment. I let them start eating again, let the noise return, let the illusion settle back in. Then I reached down slowly and placed my hand on the bag beside my chair. Not yet. Timing mattered. You don't interrupt the beginning. You wait until people are comfortable. That's when truth hits hardest. 5 minutes passed, maybe 6. Then Great Aunt Helen spoke up from across the table. Alyssa, honey, I heard you got a raise recently. There it was, the opening. Small, unintentional, perfect. I set my fork down. Thank you. I did. My father didn't look at me, didn't react. Of course he didn't. He never did. Helen nodded warmly. That's wonderful. You've always been a hard worker. I held her gaze for a second, then shifted mine to the rest of the table. 14 people, listening, casual, unaware. I stood up, slowly. No rush, no hesitation. The chair didn't scrape, no sudden noise, just movement. And that alone changed the room. My father noticed first. Sit down, Alyssa. His tone was quiet, controlled, a warning. I shook my head slightly. No. That one word cut through everything. Conversation stopped, forks paused, eyes lifted. I reached into my bag, pulled out the folder, set it on the table. Right in front of me. Clear, visible, unavoidable. I have something I need to say. My mother closed her eyes. She knew. My father stood up. Alyssa, not today. I looked at him, calm, steady. You don't get to decide that anymore. That landed hard. The room shifted. People looked between us, trying to understand, trying to catch up. I opened the folder, pulled out the first document, held it in my hand. 27 years ago, I said, my parents made a decision. Silence, complete now. No movement, no noise, just attention. A decision that shaped my entire life. My father stepped closer. Enough. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't argue. I just continued. This is a document my mother signed 1 month after I was born. I held it up. Visible, readable. It states that she agreed to cut all contact with a man named Ryan Grayson. A ripple moved through the room. Subtle, but real. Names make things real. My father's voice sharpened. Sit down. I didn't even look at him. It also states that she would raise me as his child. I let that sit, then added, regardless of the truth. That's when the room cracked slightly. Not loudly, but enough. Confusion, realization, questions forming. My mother started crying, quiet, contained. My father stepped forward again. Give me that. He reached for the paper. I stepped back. Just one step, enough. No. That one word again, short, final. You've had control for 27 years, not today. The room went still again, because something had shifted. Power. He felt it. Everyone did. I placed the first document on the table, flat, visible, then pulled out the second, a community event record from 2001. This shows a man named Ryan Grayson attending a family barbecue at our house. I looked around the room, making eye contact, not avoiding it, not softening it, letting people connect the dots themselves. Then I placed down the third, my birth certificate. Father listed as Robert Grant. I let that sit, then said it. That is not biologically accurate. Gasps. Quiet. But there. My father laughed. Short, sharp, disbelieving. This is ridiculous, is it? I reached into the folder again, pulled out the photos, placed them side by side. Me, Ryan. No labels, no explanation, just reality. Look, I didn't raise my voice. I didn't push. I let them see. Because once you see something like that, you can't unsee it. Lauren stood up slowly, her eyes moving between the photos, then to me, then to my dad. What is this? My father didn't answer, because he couldn't. I spoke instead. I took a DNA test. It's still processing, but I've already confirmed contact. Ryan Grayson is my biological father. The word landed. Biological. Final. Clinical. Undeniable. My father snapped. This is exactly what I warned you about. I turned to him, finally, looked him directly in the eye. No, this is what you hid. The room went silent again. Different this time. He pointed at me. You're tearing this family apart. I tilted my head slightly. No, I'm showing it as it is. He stepped closer, voice louder now. Emotional. You're being dramatic. There it was. The word, the label, the control. I let it pass, then answered. Calm, precise. I didn't lose a family. I lost a lie. Silence, total. Because that line didn't argue. It ended things. My father's expression shifted, from anger to something else. Desperation. This isn't how this works, he said. You don't get to rewrite history. I held his gaze. I'm not rewriting anything. I'm correcting it. That hit harder, because it was true. And truth is hard to fight. Lauren spoke again, her voice shaking now. You knew? She looked at him. Not me, him. You knew this whole time? He didn't answer. That was the answer. Her face changed, something breaking, slow, painful. Mom? My mother couldn't speak. She just cried. And that told everyone everything. The room started shifting, physically now. People leaning back, looking at each other, processing. Because this wasn't small anymore. This was real. Documented. Exposed. I stepped forward slightly. Not aggressive, just present. For 27 years, I thought I was the problem. I let that sit, then added, I wasn't. My voice stayed even. I wasn't difficult. I wasn't ungrateful. I wasn't less. I paused, let every word land. I was just inconvenient to your truth. No one spoke, because there was nothing left to say. The illusion was gone, completely. And standing there, in a room full of people who had watched my life unfold without ever questioning it, I realized something. This wasn't the end. Not yet. Because exposure is one thing. What comes after is something else entirely. And judging by the look on my father's face, he wasn't finished fighting. Not even close. At 12:31 p.m., exactly 13 minutes after I stood up, my father stopped trying to control the room and started trying to control the damage. You could see the shift happen. It was subtle, but once you notice it, you can't miss it again. His posture changed, less rigid, more calculated, like he realized brute force wasn't going to work anymore. So he switched tactics. Denial. This is incomplete information, he said, voice steadier now. You're drawing conclusions without full proof. There it was. Not anger. Strategy. I didn't move, didn't interrupt, because this was predictable, and I was ready for it. I reached into the folder again, pulled out another sheet, didn't rush, didn't dramatize, just placed it on the table. I've already contacted him. That line shifted the room again. People leaned in. My father's jaw tightened. And? He said he didn't know I existed. A pause. A small one, but enough. Because now the narrative had changed. This wasn't just about betrayal. It was about concealment. Deliberate. Long-term. I continued. He left town in 2001 because he was told to. I looked at my mother. She couldn't meet my eyes. He didn't walk away. He was pushed out. My father scoffed. You're taking the word of a stranger over your own family? I shook my head slightly. No, I'm taking the word of someone who had no reason to lie. That landed. Because motive matters. And for the first time, his didn't look clean. He pivoted again. Blame. Your mother made a mistake, he said. A long time ago. I chose to stay. I chose to raise you. He looked around the room, like he was appealing to them now, like he needed witnesses on his side. Most men wouldn't have done that. There it was, the narrative he'd been holding on to, the one that made him the victim, the one that justified everything else. I let him finish. Then I stepped forward slightly. You didn't raise me. Silence. He blinked, caught off guard. I continued. You housed me, you fed me, but you didn't raise me. My voice stayed calm, measured, because truth doesn't need volume. You gave her everything. I gestured toward Lauren, the room, the attention, the support. Then I brought it back, and you gave me just enough to exist. That hit. Harder than anything I'd said so far. Because it wasn't emotional. It was specific, observable, undeniable. My father's face hardened again. You're ungrateful. There it was. Final fallback. Character attack. I didn't react, didn't flinch, just answered. No, I'm accurate. The room went still, because accuracy is harder to argue than emotion. Lauren stepped forward, her voice shaking now, but stronger than before. Dad, is it true? He didn't answer. Again and again, that was the answer. She looked at him, really looked, like she was seeing him for the first time. You knew? He exhaled sharply. I had suspicions. There it was, out loud, public, irreversible. Gasps, whispers, small reactions spreading through the room, because that was the second layer of truth. Not just that it happened, but that it was known and hidden. Lauren stepped back slightly. Her hand went to her mouth. You knew, and you still... She couldn't finish. Didn't need to. Everyone else did it for her. In their heads. My father looked at her, then at me, then back at the room. And something in him cracked. Just slightly. Enough. I stayed still. Let it unfold. Because this wasn't my job anymore. The truth was doing the work. My mother finally spoke, her voice barely holding together. He made me sign something. The room shifted again. Now the attention moved to her. What? Someone whispered. She looked at me, then at the table, then forced the words out. A document, saying I would never tell him, never tell you. She broke down again. But this time, it wasn't quiet. It was visible, messy, public. That was the third layer. Evidence, confirmation, collapse. My father turned on her. You didn't have to say that. There it was, blame shifting. Classic. She shook her head, tears falling. I should have said it years ago. The room was no longer stable. Emotion was spreading now. Not controlled, not contained. And my father was losing ground. Fast. He tried one more angle. Victim. I stayed, he said. I didn't leave. I kept this family together. I looked at him. Steady. Clear. You kept control. That stopped him, completely. Because that word cut deeper than anything else. Control. Not sacrifice. Not love. Control. He had no response. None. The room felt different now. Not tense. Resolved. Because the truth had moved through all three layers. Suspicion, evidence, confirmation. There was nowhere left to go. I reached into my bag one last time, pulled out my phone, opened a message, turned the screen toward the table. This is his reply. Simple, direct. I didn't know. I let them read it, didn't explain, didn't add context, because I didn't need to. It spoke for itself. Then I said the last thing I needed to say. I'm not here to destroy anything. I paused. Let them look at me. Really look. I'm here because for 27 years, I was the only one living without the truth. Silence. No movement. No defense. Nothing left. I picked up my folder, closed it, slow, deliberate, and then I said it. I'm done carrying something that was never mine. That line settled into the room. Final. Complete. My father didn't speak, didn't move, because for the first time, he had nothing left to control. And as I turned toward the door, I realized something. This wasn't just exposure anymore. This was consequence. And it was just beginning. At 12:46 p.m., as I reached for the front door handle, my father finally said my name the way he never had before. Not sharp, not controlled, not dismissive. Alyssa, wait. I stopped, not because he asked, because of how he asked. There was something in it I hadn't heard in 27 years. Not authority, not anger. Something closer to fear. I didn't turn around immediately. I let the silence stretch. Because now, he needed me to. That was new. Slowly, I turned. The room looked different, not physically, but emotionally. People had shifted. Positions changed. Energy changed. My Aunt Denise sat back in her chair, eyes locked on my father. Lauren stood near the table, arms wrapped around herself. My mother sat down, completely drained, like whatever she'd been holding up had finally collapsed. And my father stood in the center of it. Alone. That was new, too. He took a step toward me, not aggressive, careful, like he didn't know what I'd do next. We can fix this. I almost smiled, not out of humor, out of clarity, because that word, fix, implied something was broken. This wasn't broken. This was revealed. I tilted my head slightly. Fix what? He hesitated. That hesitation said more than any answer. The family. I shook my head slowly. This isn't about the family. He stepped closer. It is. You don't understand what this is going to do. I held his gaze. No, you don't understand what it already did. That landed. He looked at me, really looked, and for the first time, he didn't argue immediately. He tried something else. Negotiation. We can talk about this privately. There it was. The final attempt. Containment. I stepped back slightly, just enough to make the boundary visible. No, that word again. Short. Final. You don't get to move this back into silence. His jaw tightened. This isn't something you air out in front of everyone. I let out a quiet breath. You mean like how you kept it hidden from everyone? That hit hard. He looked around the room, saw the eyes, the attention, the judgment, and realized there was no going back. So he shifted again. Blame. You're enjoying this, aren't you? I didn't react, because that accusation wasn't about me. It was about him losing control. No, my voice stayed calm. I'm ending it. Silence, because that word, ending, carried weight. He stared at me, trying to find something to hold on to, but there was nothing left. Lauren spoke then, her voice steadier now, different. Dad, just stop. He turned to her. You don't understand. No, she cut him off. I do. That surprised him. It surprised me too, because this was new. Lauren didn't interrupt him. Ever. She stepped forward, closer to me now than him. You knew. Her voice didn't shake this time. You knew, and you let her grow up like that. He opened his mouth, closed it, because there wasn't a version of that sentence that sounded acceptable out loud. She continued, "Do you know what that looks like from here?" He didn't answer, because now he was the one being questioned, publicly, and he had no script for that. Lauren shook her head slowly. "I thought we were just different. I thought she was more independent. I thought—" She stopped, looked at me, eyes full. I didn't see it. That mattered. More than I expected. Because it wasn't denial, it was realization. I met her eyes. "You weren't supposed to." She swallowed. "Still, I should have." That silence again, but softer this time. Then she turned back to him. "You don't get to call her dramatic, not after this." That landed harder than anything I'd said, because it came from her. The one he had always centered, the one he couldn't dismiss. He looked at her. Something in his expression cracked again. Then he turned back to me, voice lower now, less sharp. "What do you want from me?" There it was. Not control, not denial. A question, late, but real. I didn't answer immediately, because I wanted it to be clear, not emotional, not reactive. I stepped forward slightly, closed the distance just enough. "I don't want anything from you." That stopped him, completely, because that wasn't what he expected. Not money, not apology, not repair. Nothing. I continued. "I wanted the truth. I got it. I wanted to understand my life. Now I do." I paused, then said the last thing he probably never expected to hear. "I'm not your responsibility anymore." Silence. Deep. Unavoidable. Because for 27 years, that's how he defined me. An obligation, a consequence, something he managed. And now, that was gone. He had nothing to hold over me, nothing to control, nothing to negotiate. My mother spoke softly. "Alyssa?" I turned to her. She looked smaller than ever, but different. Not hiding, just exposed. "I'm sorry." I nodded once. "I know." And this time, I meant it. Not forgiveness, not yet, but acknowledgement, because she had finally said it, out loud, in front of everyone. That mattered. I looked around the room one last time. 14 people, all of them seeing something they hadn't seen before. Not me, the truth. I picked up my bag, slid the folder inside. No rush, no hesitation. Then I said it, calm, clear, final. "I'm not coming back here as someone who has to earn a place." I let that settle, then added, "If I come back, it'll be because I choose to." That was it. No anger, no shouting, just boundaries. Real ones. I turned, walked to the door. This time, no one stopped me. No one tried. Because they understood something now. This wasn't a reaction. This was a decision. I opened the door, stepped outside. The air felt different, lighter. Not because everything was fixed, but because something had finally been released. Behind me, the house stayed quiet. No voices, no arguments, just aftermath. I walked to my car, got in, closed the door, sat there for a second, hands on the steering wheel, breathing steady, because this was the part no one talks about. After the truth, after the confrontation, after the collapse, the quiet, the space, the reset. I started the engine, pulled away from Willow Creek Road, didn't look back, because there was nothing left to see there, not for me. And as I drove, one thought settled in, clear, unshakable. For 27 years, I lived inside someone else's version of my life. Today, I took it back, completely. And whatever came next would finally be mine. 42 days after Mother's Day, at exactly 7:06 a.m., I woke up, made coffee in my own kitchen, and realized something simple. No one had called me dramatic in 6 weeks. No one had corrected my tone. No one had asked me to sit down and stay quiet. The silence in my life had changed. It wasn't suppression anymore. It was peace. If you've ever had to walk away from something to finally hear your own voice, tell me in the comments. And if you've stayed with this story this far, hit subscribe, because what happens after the truth is told is where real life begins. I sat at my small kitchen table. Same one, same chair. But I wasn't the same person sitting in it. The DNA results had come back 2 weeks earlier. Clear, clinical, final. 99.98% probability. Ryan T. Grayson, listed as biological father. No ambiguity, no interpretation, just fact. I didn't cry when I saw it. I didn't react at all. Because by the time the science confirmed it, I already knew. What the test gave me wasn't shock. It gave me closure. I printed the results, 1 copy, not 3. I didn't need protection anymore. I didn't need leverage. I just needed record. I placed it in a simple folder, different from before. No tabs, no organization, no strategy. Just truth. Quietly held. Life didn't explode after that day. It shifted, slowly, realistically, like most real things do. My mother called every Sunday, not to convince, not to control, just to talk. Short conversations, 10 minutes, sometimes less. She told me she started therapy, twice a week. Said she was finally saying things out loud she'd buried for decades. One Sunday, she said something that stayed with me. I thought I was protecting you. I answered honestly. You were protecting your choice. There was a pause. Then she said, I know. That was the difference now. No arguments, no rewriting, just acknowledgement. We didn't fix everything, but we stopped pretending, and that was a start. My father never called, not once. But 3 weeks after everything, a letter showed up. Handwritten, no return address. I recognized the handwriting immediately. Tight, controlled, still him. I opened it at the same table. No rush, no fear, just curiosity. He didn't apologize the way people expect. No dramatic language, no emotional paragraphs. Just truth. The night you were born, I knew. He wrote it plainly. I told myself I could live with it, that I could treat you the same. I was wrong. I read that line twice, because it was the first honest thing he had ever said about me. I saw her mistake every time I looked at you. And instead of dealing with that, I made you smaller so I didn't have to face it. I set the letter down for a second, not because it hurt, because it clarified everything. He continued, I don't expect forgiveness. I just needed you to know I see it now. He signed it, Robert. Not Dad, not love, just his name. I folded the letter, placed it in my drawer, not as something to revisit, not as something to hold on to, just as record. Because closure doesn't always come from repair. Sometimes it comes from understanding. Lauren changed the most. We talked every Thursday. Not surface conversations, real ones. She asked questions she had never asked before, listened in ways she never had. One afternoon, she invited me over. Not to Willow Creek Road, to her house. New, neutral, different. I went, because this time, it was my choice. She opened the door and stepped aside. No hesitation, no performance, just space. Inside, the house smelled like fresh paint and vanilla candles. She led me to the living room, stopped, then said, I did something. Her voice was careful, like she didn't know how I'd react. I looked at the wall. 3 framed photos, all of me. A childhood picture from a school event, the only one where I wasn't cut off at the edge. A photo from my first apartment, taken by a coworker, and one from a few weeks ago, me standing outside a coffee shop, Ryan in the background. Not posed, not staged, just real. I walked closer, looked at them, didn't speak right away, because something about that felt bigger than the frames. "I know it's late," she said quietly. I nodded. "Yeah, but you did it." She exhaled. "I should have seen it sooner." I looked at her. "You see it now. That's what matters." We stood there in silence, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It was balanced. For the first time in our lives. Ryan and I met every other Saturday. Same coffee shop, same table. But now, it felt familiar, not foreign. He didn't try to replace anything, didn't overcompensate, didn't rush. He just showed up, consistently. That mattered more than anything else. The third time, he brought Nathan again. This time, it was easier, less awkward, more natural. Nathan dropped into the chair, looked at me, and said, "So, you're really stuck with us now." I raised an eyebrow slightly. "Sounds like it." He smirked. "Good." I laughed. And that laugh felt different. Not forced, not careful, just real. Ryan watched us, quiet, eyes softer than before. Like something in his life had finally been returned. Not completely, but enough. One Saturday, he brought a small wooden frame, handmade, simple, clean. "I made this," he said. Didn't over-explain, didn't make it a moment, just placed it on the table. I ran my fingers along the edges, smooth, solid, carefully built, like everything else he did. I took it home, placed a photo inside, the three of us, taken outside the coffee shop. No posing, no perfection, just real. I set it on the shelf by my front door. First thing I see when I leave. First thing I see when I come back. Because this time, I chose what goes on my walls. A month later, I bought 4 more frames. Simple, matching. I hung them myself. No help, no permission. The first, my graduation photo. Taken alone, but not lonely anymore. The second, me and Lauren, standing on her porch. No tension, just presence. The third, me and Nathan, mid-laugh, unfiltered. The fourth, me and Ryan, coffee shop, morning light, quiet connection. I stepped back, looked at the wall. 4 photos, all of me, centered, visible, real. For 27 years, I thought I didn't belong. Turns out, I was just in the wrong place. My name is Alyssa Grant. I'm 27 years old, and for the first time in my life, I know exactly who I am. Not because someone told me, because I found out. If there's a truth in your life that no one is saying out loud, ask yourself this: is keeping the peace worth losing yourself? Or is the truth worth everything it costs? Tell me in the comments. And if you're ready for the next story, the one where a woman finds out her sister sold her inheritance behind her back, you might want to stay, because that one doesn't end quietly.